BBC Radio Cambridgeshire.
And I'm sure many people listening were very worried at the end of March when we got the news that my next guest had contracted Covid-19, had been admitted to hospital. He was the MEP for the East of England from 94 to 2016 for the Labour Party. In fact, he was on the National Executive of the Labour Party as well. He's Richard Howitt, and I'm pleased to say he joins us now. Hello, Richard.
Hello, Chris. I'm always pleased to talk to you, but could I say today I'm even more pleased to talk to you because I'm through this thing.
Absolutely. Well, I do recall you giving me your last interview as an MEP before you went off into business 4 years ago now. And then we got the news that you'd got COVID. Just tell us the awful journey that you've been on, my friend.
Well, I knew I had a chest infection, but I really didn't think it was COVID, and I underestimated it badly. And in the end, my doctor had ordered me to go to hospital. They were brilliant at Addenbrooke's. Everyone knows that. The H in National Health Services for heroes. The nurses were utterly fantastic. But it was a completely strange experience. Of course, they've got a special procedure for admitting you. You go through a different entrance, a different procedure. And as fearful as it was for me, you had the people who received you also looking fearfully at you because I think they don't know who is next going to walk through the door. And you had a lot of tests, but in less than a day they'd worked out I got it. And then you went on to a COVID ward. I was lucky. I wasn't one of the worst. I didn't get into intensive care. I didn't use a ventilator, but I was on the ward for 3 days. I did have to have oxygen. And this virus is a scourge. It was like a sort of medieval scene with everyone coughing and calling out, including me. But the nurses and the doctors, absolutely brilliant.
You've just had your 59th birthday last month, did you not?
I did.
Yeah.
And I'm not in the biggest risk group, but people in their 50s, I think, are much more likely to have to go into hospital.
Yeah. Did you think beforehand, I'm at risk here? Was there a thought about that, or did this whole thing take you by surprise?
I completely underestimated it. I was hoping to get out in a day and be back at work, but you don't really. I certainly didn't realise how ill I was. And if you think it's now 6 or 7 weeks later, and only this week am I sort of getting back into the world of work and society, and I had a bad pneumonia on both lungs. It gives you pneumonia in some cases, and certainly mine. And the doctor said this will take 6 to 8 weeks to recover, and it's been very difficult to breathe. I'm still struggle to breathe, and my next door neighbour, I did start to go into the garden during that period. My next door neighbour said she heard my coughing and she's really frightened by it, which is understandable, isn't it?
Forgive me for saying this, but you really don't sound 100%, Richard.
I love you too, Chris. The good news is this, that first of all, my family have been brilliant. There was 1 week when I had to be quarantined even from them,
right,
and my partner and my 2 children, and they had to sort of leave the food outside the door like being in prison or something. That was really, really hard. But my family, obviously I love them dearly, but they've looked after me so well, and none of them have got it, which is fantastic.
That's
also, I
remarkable.
live in a road where people are so neighbourly, and people have offered help with shopping. When there were 2 weeks when none of us could go out, and everyone really rallied. I was in a top room on my own, shut away, and the heating went. And so we put out a call at 7 in the morning because someone got a mobile heater. Within half an hour, 4 had arrived at our front door. The chap across the road came over in his pyjamas and dressing gown, running over with it. The human kindness that has been shown in this crisis, utterly wonderful.
And talk to us about the staff at Addenbrooke's. You touched on it earlier on, and the scene. I mean, we have seen some television pictures and we have heard descriptions of it, but I mean, the only word I can think of is it just looks and sounds hellish in there. And what a job they're doing in the midst of all that.
You are feeling so ill and you feel so helpless, especially when you just can't stop coughing. There were times where I just couldn't stop coughing. And there's a limit to what they can do. but it's the love and the care and the thoughtfulness and the presence, really, of the nurses. You know, everyone knows how nursing is such a wonderful, wonderful vocation, but I experienced that. But could I also say, since coming out, my GP practice, these are unsung heroes in this, but I've had to be on the phone to them every week, I think, or nearly. They've had to give me exercises, do extra drugs. And the GPs, although they're not treating COVID patients, and you mustn't go in there if you've got COVID, they have been so supportive. Petersfield Medical Practice in Cambridge, I'll name check them, and they've been wonderful too. So the people in the hospital are fantastic, but it really is the whole health service.
Mm. Well, we are taking tiny steps to move out of the lockdown. How do you feel about that, Richard?
Well, I would definitely be. I think anyone who's had it is definitely on the side of caution first, you know. And I think, you know, anything that can save a life, that must be the priority. And you say I went on. I did do some work in business after I left being MEP, but I'm now running a charity in Cambridgeshire called Cambridgeshire Hearing Help, which is still providing a service to people who are hard of hearing across the county. And by the way, we are still there.
Brilliant.
But we've had to adapt massively what we're doing in these circumstances, and everyone needs to do that to try and keep going, but to make sure that safety comes first.
Richard, it is absolutely wonderful to hear your voice, and I'm so pleased you've come through this, because we were all worried about you. And thank you for talking on the show tonight, Richard. Well,
I hope my story, if other people do get it who are listening, you do get through it, and the care is wonderful, and you are frightened and you are fearful, but I hope this story gives some reassurance to people who are listening.
Absolutely. Richard Howitt there, the former Labour MEP for the East of England, now recovered from coronavirus.
Across Cambridge.